The silver moon hung fat and full above the silver moon pack's sacred clearing, casting ethereal light across the gathering of wolves below. Luna Blackwood smoothed her simple white dress with trembling fingers, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Tonight was the monthly mate bonding ceremony, and after 18 years of hoping, praying, and dreaming, she finally understood what the pull in her chest meant. Marcus Ravencrest was her mate. She'd known it the moment she'd shifted for the first time 6 months ago. The golden thread that connected their souls had snapped into place with such force it had knocked the breath from her lungs. Every stolen glance across the pack meetings, every accidental brush of fingers when he'd handed her something, every flutter in her stomach when he'd smiled at her, it all made perfect sense now. Luna, sweetheart, stop fidgeting. Her adoptive mother, Sarah, appeared at her elbow with a gentle smile that didn't quite reach her worried blue eyes. You look beautiful. Do you really think so? Luna touched the wildflowers she'd woven into her dark hair that morning. She'd spent hours getting ready, wanting to look perfect for Marcus. For her mate. Sarah's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. Thomas and I are so proud of you. The crowd began to quiet as Alpha Marcus stepped into the center of the sacred circle. At 25, he was everything an alpha should be, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of commanding presence that made even the strongest wolves submit. His dark hair caught the moonlight, and those piercing green eyes that had haunted Luna's dreams seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Luna's breath caught in her throat. He was magnificent, and he was hers. My pack, Marcus's deep voice carried easily across the clearing. Tonight we gather under the blessing of our moon goddess to witness the sacred bonds that will strengthen our bloodlines. Luna's wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin, recognizing its mate. She could feel Marcus's presence like warmth against her soul, the invisible thread between them humming with anticipation. Soon, he would call her forward. Soon, everyone would know that she, plain, quiet Luna Blackwood, was destined to be their alpha's mate. Tonight, I have found my mate, Marcus continued, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. Luna's heart soared. This was it. This was her moment. Isabella Crawford, please step forward. The world tilted sideways. Luna's vision blurred as a stunning blonde emerged from the crowd, her perfect smile radiant in the moonlight. Isabella, the pack's golden girl, daughter of the former alpha, everything Luna could never be. No, Luna whispered, the word torn from her throat like a physical wound. But Marcus was already pulling Isabella into his arms, already pressing his lips to hers as the pack erupted in cheers and applause. The mate bond Luna had felt so strongly twisted into something sharp and agonizing, like glass grinding against her soul. This can't be happening, she breathed. Then Marcus's eyes found hers across the crowd, and Luna saw something that made her blood turn to ice. Not confusion, not regret, but cold, calculated dismissal. He'd known. He'd known she was his mate, and he'd chosen someone else anyway. Alpha Marcus, Luna heard her own voice as if from a great distance. The crowd began to quiet, sensing drama. Alpha Marcus, Luna. Marcus's voice cut through the night like a blade. What are you doing? Her legs moved without her permission, carrying her into the sacred circle where everyone could see her humiliation. You're my mate, she said simply, the words falling into the sudden silence like stones into still water. Marcus's handsome face hardened. No. You are mistaken. I can feel the bond. Luna's voice cracked. I've felt it for months. The pull, the connection. There is no bond. Marcus's words were arctic, final. Look at yourself, Luna. Look at what you are. Luna's hands instinctively smoothed down her simple dress, suddenly aware of how plain she must look compared to Isabella's designer gown and perfect makeup. You have no bloodline, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger as murmurs rippled through the crowd. No power. No strength. You can barely shift without exhausting yourself. He stepped closer, and Luna caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something else, something that spoke to the wolf in her. Did you really think I would saddle myself with such weakness? The pack's laughter started as scattered chuckles, but it built like a storm, growing louder and crueler until it surrounded Luna from all sides. She felt her wolf cowering, whimpering at the rejection of its mate. "Marcus, please." Marcus Ravencrest, Alpha of the Sill, you know we found you as a baby," Thomas said carefully. "Abandoned in the woods, no parents, no pack, Vermoon pack, reject you, Luna Blackwood." The formal words hit her like physical blows. "You are not worthy of an Alpha's bloodline. You will never be worthy." The mate bond snapped. Luna screamed as the severing tore through her soul, dropping to her knees in the sacred circle while the pack's laughter echoed around her. She felt something breaking inside her chest, something fundamental and necessary cracking apart like ice in spring. "Get up," Marcus said coldly. "You're embarrassing yourself." Luna tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. The rejection wound felt like fire in her veins, like acid eating away at everything she thought she knew about herself. Through her tears, she saw the faces surrounding her, some laughing, others looking away in embarrassment, a few showing what might have been pity. "I said get up." Marcus's voice was sharp with irritation now. Strong hands gripped her arms, hauling her to her feet. Beta Thomas, her adoptive father, was suddenly there, his face grim as he helped her stand. "Come on, Luna. Let's go home." The walk from the sacred clearing to their small house on the outskirts of the pack territory felt like walking through quicksand. Every step was agony, every breath a struggle against the gaping wound where her mate bond should have been. Luna was dimly aware of Thomas supporting most of her weight, of Sarah fussing around them both, but their voices sounded muffled and distant. Once inside their modest living room, Luna collapsed onto the worn sofa, finally allowing the tears to come in earnest. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body and left her gasping for air. "Oh, sweetheart." Sarah sat beside her, pulling Luna against her shoulder. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Why?" Luna choked out between sobs. "Why would he do that?" "I felt the bond, Mom." "I know I did." Thomas cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Luna, there's something we need to tell you. Something we probably should have explained years ago." Luna looked up through her tears. There was something in Thomas's expression that made her wolf stir uneasily, guilt, fear, and something else she couldn't identify. "What do you mean?" Sarah and Thomas exchanged a loaded look. Sarah's hand tightened on Luna's shoulder. "You told me they died in a rogue attack." Luna's voice was barely a whisper. "That's what we assumed," Sarah said quickly. "But Luna, when we found you, you had a birthmark. Strange symbols across your back, unlike anything we'd ever seen." Luna's breath caught. "Had? We took you to Elena, the witch who lives on the border of our territory," Thomas continued. "She said the marks were dangerous, that they would draw the wrong kind of attention. She gave us a concealment charm to hide them, to keep you safe." "The charm is fading," Sarah whispered. "We've been renewing it every few years, but Elena says it won't hold much longer. She says you're too powerful now, that your wolf is too strong." Luna stared at them in shock. "You've been hiding part of me? My entire life?" "To protect you," Thomas said firmly. "Those marks. Elena said they were from an old bloodline. A dangerous one." "What bloodline?" Again, that loaded look between her parents. "We don't know," Sarah said, but Luna caught the lie in her voice. A sudden burning sensation spread across Luna's back, like fire racing along her spine. She gasped, arching away from the sofa as pain lanced through her. "Luna." Sarah reached for her, but Luna was already stumbling toward the hallway mirror, pulling off her cardigan as she went. The marks were there, just as her parents had described. Ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, covering her back from shoulder to shoulder. They looked almost like writing, like a language she should understand but couldn't quite grasp. "What do they mean?" she breathed. "We don't know," Thomas repeated, but his voice sounded strained. The burning intensified, and Luna doubled over as another wave of pain crashed through her. But underneath the pain was something else, power. Raw, untamed energy that made her wolf lift its head and howl with recognition. "I need heir," she gasped. "I need." Without finishing the sentence, she ran. Past her parents' protests, through the front door, into the cool night air that offered no relief from the fire burning in her veins. The forest called to her like it never had before, ancient and wild and full of secrets. Luna ran toward the tree line, not caring that she was still wearing her white dress from the ceremony, not caring that branches caught at her hair and tore at the fabric. The rejection wound in her chest throbbed with every heartbeat, but it was nothing compared to the power building under her skin. The marks on her back blazed brighter with each step she took away from the pack territory, away from Marcus and his cruel words, away from the life she'd thought was hers. She didn't stop running until she reached the old oak tree that marked the boundary between Silver Moon territory and the wild lands beyond. Only then did she allow herself to collapse against the massive trunk, gulping air and pressing her cheek to the rough bark. "Unworthy," she whispered into the darkness. "Weak." But even as she spoke Marcus's words, she knew they weren't true. Whatever was happening to her, whatever these marks meant, she was anything but weak. The power coursing through her veins felt ancient, primal, like something that had been sleeping for a very long time and was only now beginning to wake. Luna tilted her face toward the moon, letting its silver light wash over her tear-stained cheeks. "What am I?" she asked the night sky. The forest answered with silence, but not the empty kind. This was the loaded silence that came before a storm, heavy with electricity and promise. And in that silence, Luna felt them, presences moving through the shadows just beyond her vision. She turned slowly, her newly awakened senses picking up scents that didn't belong in Silver Moon territory. Wild things. Dangerous things. Ancient things that smelled of midnight and starlight and power older than the pack structure itself. 3 pairs of eyes emerged from the darkness, glowing with an otherworldly light that had nothing to do with the moon above. Not werewolves, Luna was certain of that much. These were something else entirely, something that watched her with intelligent hunger as the marks on her back pulsed in recognition. "Who are you?" she whispered. The eyes blinked once, slowly, and then melted back into the shadows as if they'd never been there at all. But Luna knew they were still watching, still waiting. Still hunting. She pressed her hand to her chest, where the mate bond should have been, and felt only emptiness. Marcus had rejected her, called her unworthy, dismissed her in front of the entire pack. But as the ancient symbols on her back blazed with increasing brightness and the mysterious watchers circled in the darkness beyond, Luna began to suspect that Marcus Ravencrest had no idea what he'd just set free. Chapter 2. Luna woke to the sound of rain pattering against leaves and the dull ache of sleeping on forest floor. Every muscle in her body protested as she sat up, her white dress now torn and stained with mud and pine needles. The events of the previous night crashed over her like a cold wave, Marcus's rejection, the marks on her back, those strange glowing eyes watching from the shadows. She pressed her fingers to her chest, where the severed mate bond felt like a constant, throbbing wound. The pain was duller now, but it served as a cruel reminder of everything she'd lost in a single moment. "You're awake." Luna spun around, her heart hammering as a figure emerged from behind the old oak tree. A man, tall and lean with dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it more than once. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch, silver, like moonlight on water, and far too knowing for someone who looked barely older than herself. "Who are you?" She scrambled to her feet, ignoring the way her torn dress caught on a branch. "Someone who's been looking for you for a very long time." He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate and controlled. "My name is Kai. And you, Luna Blackwood, are not supposed to be here." Luna's wolf stirred uneasily. There was something different about this man, something that set every instinct on high alert. "How do you know my name?" "I know a lot of things about you." Kai stopped just out of arm's reach, those silver eyes studying her face with unsettling intensity. "I know you were rejected by your mate last night. I know those marks on your back are starting to show. And I know you have absolutely no idea what you really are." The marks, Luna's hand flew to her back, even though she couldn't feel them through her dress. You can see them? They're practically glowing. Kai's voice was matter-of-fact, but something flickered in his expression. That concealment charm your parents used is completely gone. You're broadcasting your bloodline to every supernatural creature within 100 miles. Luna felt the blood drain from her face. My parents said the charm was fading, but it's not fading. It's been shattered. Kai stepped closer, and Luna caught his scent, wild and earthy, with an undertone of something dangerous. Rejection from a mate bond can do that, especially when the rejection is as brutal as yours was. The casual way he spoke about her humiliation made Luna's cheeks burn with fresh shame. Were you there? Did you see? I didn't need to see. I could feel it from miles away. Kai's silver eyes softened slightly. The breaking of a bond that strong, it ripples through everything. Luna wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling exposed despite being fully clothed. What do you want from me? Right now? To keep you alive. Kai glanced around the forest, and Luna noticed how his posture had shifted, alert, ready for danger. This area isn't safe anymore. Not for you, not with those marks fully visible. Safe from what? Instead of answering, Kai held out his hand. Come with me. There's someone you need to meet, and we don't have much time. Luna stared at his outstretched hand, every self-preservation instinct screaming at her not to trust this stranger. But what choice did she have? She couldn't go home, not after last night. The pack would never accept her, and Marcus. The thought of facing Marcus again made her chest tighten with fresh pain. Where are we going? She asked, but she was already reaching for Kai's hand. His fingers were warm and calloused, and the moment their skin touched, Luna felt a strange jolt of recognition. Not the golden warmth of a mate bond, but something else, a sense of coming home that she couldn't explain. The Shadowlands, Kai said, and started walking deeper into the forest. Luna had heard whispers about the Shadowlands her entire life, stories told in hushed tones about the wild territory beyond pack boundaries, where rogues and outcasts made their homes. A place where pack law held no sway and survival depended on strength and cunning rather than bloodlines and politics. I'm not a rogue, she protested, even as she followed Kai through the undergrowth. No, Kai agreed. You're something much more dangerous. They walked in silence for what felt like hours, moving deeper into parts of the forest Luna had never seen. The trees grew thicker here, their canopies so dense that very little sunlight filtered through to the forest floor. Strange sounds echoed from the shadows, not quite animal, not quite human. The symbols on your back, Kai said suddenly, his voice low. Do you know what they are? Luna shook her head, then realized he couldn't see her with his back turned. My parents said they were from an old bloodline, but they didn't know which one. Kai made a sound that might have been a laugh, but there was no humor in it. They knew exactly which one. What do you mean? Kai stopped walking and turned to face her. In the dim light filtering through the trees, his silver eyes seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Those marks are written in ancient Lycan script. It's a language that's been dead for over 1,000 years. Luna felt something cold settle in her stomach. Lycan script? The original werewolf language, from before the Great War that split us into separate packs. Kai resumed walking, but his pace had quickened. Only the royal bloodlines knew how to read and write it. Royal bloodlines? Luna stumbled over a root, her mind reeling. That's impossible. I'm nobody special. My parents found me abandoned. Your parents lied to you. The flat statement hit Luna like a physical blow. No. They wouldn't. Those marks don't just appear, Luna. They're not birthmarks or scars. They're brands, burned into the skin of royal children at birth to mark their bloodline and their destiny. Kai's voice was gentle now, but implacable. Only direct descendants of the ancient Lycan kings carry them. Luna stopped walking entirely, her legs suddenly too weak to support her. You're lying. Am I? Kai turned back, and in his silver eyes she saw something that looked almost like pity. Tell me, have you ever felt different? Stronger than you should be? Like there was something sleeping inside you, waiting to wake up? Luna's breath came in short gasps. She thought about the power that had surged through her the night before, the way the forest had called to her, the strange sense of recognition when those glowing eyes had watched her from the shadows. It doesn't matter, she said finally. Even if what you're saying is true, it doesn't change anything. I'm still nobody. I still got rejected in front of my entire pack. Marcus Ravencrest is a fool, Kai said with such vehemence that Luna blinked in surprise. But his stupidity might have saved your life. Before Luna could ask what he meant, a new sound reached their ears. Howls, distant but growing closer. Not the normal sounds of wolves hunting or communicating, but something else. Something wrong. Kai's entire body went rigid. We need to move. Now. What is that? Trouble. Kai grabbed her hand and broke into a run, pulling her deeper into the Shadowlands. They emerged from the thick forest into a clearing where several ramshackle buildings huddled together like frightened animals. Smoke rose from a few chimneys, and Luna could see movement in the shadows between buildings, people, but they moved with the wary alertness of those who lived constantly on edge. Welcome to Haven, Kai said grimly. The last refuge for those who don't fit anywhere else. A woman emerged from the largest building, her graying hair pulled back in a severe bun and her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. She looked Luna up and down with the assessing gaze of someone used to making quick judgments about people's worth. So this is the one who's been causing all the fuss, she said, her voice carrying a slight accent Luna couldn't place. I'm Elena, and you, child, are in more danger than you know. Elena? Luna's eyes widened. You're the witch who made the concealment charm. Elena's expression grew grim. The charm that's now completely destroyed, yes. And the breaking of it has sent ripples through realms you didn't even know existed. The howling grew louder, closer, and now Luna could hear something else underneath it, screams of terror and pain. The Silver Moon Pack, Kai breathed, his face going pale. Elena nodded grimly. The shadow creatures have found them. Shadow creatures? Luna felt like she was drowning in information she couldn't process. Things that hunt royal bloodlines, Elena explained tersely. Things that have been sleeping for a very long time, waiting for a signal strong enough to wake them. The reality hit Luna like a sledgehammer. The breaking of the concealment charm. And the severing of your mate bond, Elena confirmed. The combination created a psychic shockwave that could be felt across dimensions. More screams echoed through the forest, and Luna saw something that made her blood turn to ice. Smoke was rising from the direction of Silver Moon territory, thick, black smoke that spoke of buildings burning. My parents, she whispered. Kai's hand tightened on hers. Luna. I have to go back. I have to help them. You'll be killed the moment you set foot on Pack territory, Elena said bluntly. Those creatures are hunting you specifically. Your presence will only make things worse. Luna's wolf paced restlessly, torn between the need to protect her pack and the instinct for self-preservation. Even though they'd rejected her, they were still her people. Sarah and Thomas, whatever their lies, had raised her with love. There's something else you need to know, Elena continued, her voice heavy with reluctant sympathy. Your parents didn't find you abandoned in the woods. Luna's heart seemed to stop beating. What? They took you from a massacre. Your entire bloodline was being systematically hunted and killed. Thomas was part of the party that found the last stronghold. The world tilted sideways. Luna felt Kai's arm around her waist, supporting her as her knees buckled. That's impossible, she breathed. Elena disappeared into her dwelling and returned with a worn wooden box. With grim ceremony, she handed it to Luna. Thomas came to me 3 days ago. He said if anything happened to him, I should give you this. With trembling hands, Luna opened the box. Inside were baby clothes, tiny, delicate things that had once been white but were now stained with something dark and rusty. Blood. Beneath the clothes was a letter written on parchment that looked ancient, covered with the same strange symbols that marked Luna's back. What does it say? Luna's voice was barely a whisper. Elena's expression was grave as she took the letter, her eyes scanning the ancient script. It's a protection spell, written by your mother as she died. She bound her life force to these clothes and this letter, ensuring that whoever found you would feel compelled to protect you. Luna sank to her knees in the dirt, the horrible truth washing over her. They didn't choose to save me. They were magically compelled. The love was real, Kai said softly, crouching beside her. Magic can't create emotions that aren't already there. It can only amplify what exists. The screaming from the direction of Silver Moon territory suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the sounds of battle had been. Then, carried on the wind, came the sound of something that made Luna's very soul recoil in terror, deep, inhuman laughter that seemed to echo from multiple throats at once. The shadow creatures are retreating, Elena said, her face pale. But why? She stopped mid-sentence, her nostrils flaring as she scented the air. Her eyes widened in horror as she looked at Luna. They've caught your scent. As if summoned by her words, a voice rolled across the forest like thunder, ancient, terrible, and filled with malevolent satisfaction. It spoke in the same Leakin script that marked Luna's skin, but somehow she understood every word. The heir has awakened. Let the hunt begin. Luna felt something deep inside her chest respond to that voice, not with fear, but with recognition. Whatever was coming for her, whatever these shadow creatures were, they were connected to her bloodline in ways she was only beginning to understand. And they were coming to claim what they believed was theirs. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. The ancient voice had barely finished echoing through the forest when the ground began to tremble beneath Luna's feet. Not an earthquake, something worse. Something that made her wolf cower and whimper with primal terror. We need to leave. Now. Elena was already moving, shoving essential items into a worn leather satchel with practiced efficiency. They'll be here within minutes. Who will? Luna struggled to her feet, still clutching the box containing her bloodied baby clothes. Everyone who wants you dead, Kai said grimly, scanning the tree line. And trust me, after what just happened to Silver Moon Pack, that's going to be a very long list. The sound of howls echoed from multiple directions now, some human, some decidedly not. Luna recognized the hunting calls of her former pack, but underneath them was something else entirely. Something that made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. The shadow creatures aren't the only things hunting you now, Elena explained, slinging her satchel over her shoulder. Marcus will blame you for what happened to his pack. In his mind, this all started when he rejected you. But I didn't do anything. Luna protested. Doesn't matter. Kai grabbed her hand, his silver eyes reflecting an urgency that made Luna's chest tighten. You're the easiest target for his rage. The howls were getting closer, and now Luna could make out individual voices among them. Marcus's deep baritone, calling for her blood. Other pack members she'd known her entire life, baying for her capture like she was nothing more than prey. This way, Elena pointed toward a narrow path that led deeper into the Shadowlands. There's an old cave system about 2 miles. She never finished the sentence. The first silver-eyed warrior burst from the tree line, his face twisted with grief and fury. Behind him came 6 more, all in partial shift, their wolves riding just beneath their human skin. Luna Blackwood. The warrior's voice cracked with emotion. You'll pay for what you've done. Run, Elena hissed. They ran. Luna had always been fast, but now she moved with a speed that should have been impossible. Her feet barely touched the ground as she raced through the undergrowth, Kai and Elena flanking her on either side. Behind them, the hunting party gave chase, their voices growing more frenzied with each passing moment. She's here. The witch spawn is here. Kill her. Kill her before she destroys us all. The words cut deeper than Luna expected. These were people who had watched her grow up, who had smiled at her during pack gatherings, who had once treated her with casual fondness. Now they spoke of her like she was a monster. There. One of the warriors spotted them through the trees. She's heading for the old caves. Not the caves, Kai said suddenly, his voice tight with strain. They'll trap us there. Then where? Luna's question was cut off by a sound that made her blood freeze in her veins. Not howls this time, but something between a whisper and a scream, like wind through broken glass. The shadow creatures had found them. Oh, no, Elena breathed. They materialized from the darkness between the trees, not solid, but not quite smoke either. They moved like liquid shadow, flowing over and around obstacles with horrible grace. And they were fast. Faster than wolves, faster than anything Luna had ever seen. What are they? She gasped. Hunters, Elena said grimly. Created specifically to hunt royal bloodlines. The Silver Moon warriors saw the shadow creatures at the same moment Luna did. Their hunting calls turned to screams of terror as the dark things flowed toward them with murderous intent. This is your fault. Marcus's voice roared from somewhere behind them. All of this is because of you. Luna felt something snap inside her chest, not the mate bond this time, but something deeper. Something that had been building since the moment Marcus had rejected her in front of the entire pack. My fault, she snarled, spinning to face her pursuers even though Kai was trying to pull her forward. My fault that you're too arrogant to see what's right in front of you? Power surged through her veins like liquid fire. The marks on her back blazed so bright they burned through her torn dress, casting strange shadows across the forest floor. Luna, don't, Elena started. But it was too late. Luna threw her hands out in front of her, and dark energy exploded from her palms like a living thing. It formed a wall of pure shadow that stretched between the trees, crackling with power that made the air itself tremble. The first shadow creature hit the barrier and simply ceased. Not destroyed, not banished, erased, as if it had never existed at all. The second and third met the same fate, their otherworldly screams cutting off mid-note. But the barrier didn't stop there. It kept expanding, disintegrating everything it touched. Trees, rocks, even the ground itself turned to ash where the dark energy passed over it. Luna. Kai's voice was sharp with alarm. You have to stop. You're going to bring down the entire forest. Luna tried to pull the power back, but it felt like trying to hold back a river with her bare hands. The energy had a will of its own, and it wanted to consume everything in its path. I can't, she cried. I don't know how. Elena appeared at her side, chanting in a language Luna didn't recognize. The older woman's hands glowed with silver light as she pressed them against Luna's shoulders, and slowly, gradually, the dark barrier began to shrink. When it finally dissipated, Luna collapsed to her knees, shaking with exhaustion. Where the barrier had passed, there was nothing left but a perfect circle of ash and emptiness stretching nearly 50 feet in every direction. The Silver Moon warriors who had been pursuing them were gone. Not dead, simply gone, as if they had never existed. What did I do? Luna whispered, staring at the destruction she'd caused. You manifested your true power, Elena said quietly. The power of the Eclipse Bloodline. Eclipse Bloodline? Luna looked up at the witch with haunted eyes. What does that mean? Elena helped her to her feet, her expression grave. It means you're not just from any royal bloodline, child. You're from the royal bloodline. The one that ruled over all werewolves before the great betrayal. That's impossible, Luna breathed. Is it? Elena gestured toward the circle of destruction around them. Look at what you just did. Look at the power you wielded without any training, any preparation. That kind of ability doesn't come from minor nobility. Kai moved to Luna's other side, his silver eyes troubled. The Eclipse bloodline was supposed to be extinct. They were all killed during the purge. All but one, Elena corrected. A child who was spirited away during the final massacre. A child whose parents died protecting her, binding their life essence to ensure she would survive. Luna felt the world tilt around her. You're talking about me. I'm talking about the last heir to the most powerful werewolf dynasty in history, Elena said solemnly. Your ancestors didn't just rule packs, they commanded the very forces of light and shadow, life and death. But why would anyone want to destroy them? Luna asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. Power, Kai said bitterly. The Eclipse Bloodline was too powerful, too unifying. They threatened the established order where multiple packs fought for scraps of territory and influence. Elena nodded. The Pack Council couldn't control them, so they orchestrated their destruction. Made it look like a series of rogue attacks, accidents, illnesses. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was too late. Luna sank down onto a fallen log, her head spinning with the implications. So what happens now? What am I supposed to do with this information? Elena exchanged a meaningful look with Kai before answering. There's a prophecy, child. One that speaks specifically about the return of the Eclipse heir. Of course there is, Luna said wearily. The prophecy states that when the last Eclipse heir awakens to their power, they will face a choice, Elena continued. They will either unite all werewolves under the banner of darkness, ruling with absolute authority, or they will destroy everything, bringing about the end of our entire species. The words hit Luna like physical blows. There's no middle ground? None, Elena confirmed. You are destined to become either our salvation or our apocalypse. There is no path between those extremes. Luna thought about the power that had just erupted from her, how it had felt alive and hungry and eager to consume. What if I don't want either choice? What if I just want to live quietly somewhere? That option was taken from you the moment Marcus rejected you and shattered your concealment charm, Kai said gently. The supernatural world knows you exist now. There's no going back. A new sound reached their ears from the direction of Silver Moon territory, not howls this time, but something that sounded almost like weeping. But wrong, somehow. Too deep, too resonant to be coming from human throats. What's happening to them? Luna asked, though she dreaded the answer. Elena's face was grim. The rejection of an Eclipse heir comes with consequences. Marcus didn't just hurt your feelings when he publicly cast you aside, he triggered an ancient curse. What kind of curse? Those who reject the Eclipse bloodline are marked, Elena explained. Their pack bonds begin to corrupt, twisting them into the very things they once fought against. Luna felt ice form in her stomach. Shadow creatures. The transformation isn't immediate, Elena continued. But it's inevitable. Marcus and his pack are slowly becoming the monsters they feared. We have to help them, Luna said immediately. Help them? Kai stared at her in disbelief. Luna, they just tried to kill you. They blamed you for an attack that had nothing to do with you. They're still my people, Luna said stubbornly. Whatever Marcus did, the rest of the pack doesn't deserve to suffer for it. Noble sentiment, Elena said sadly. But I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. The curse can only be broken by the willing sacrifice of the Eclipse heir it was meant to protect. Then I'll... No. Elena's voice was sharp. Because your death wouldn't just save Marcus's pack. It would ensure that the prophecy could never be fulfilled, that no Eclipse heir would ever rise to unite or destroy our people. Luna buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. So no matter what I do, people suffer. That's the burden of power, Elena said softly. And why your bloodline was feared as much as it was revered. There's something else, Elena continued, her voice heavy with reluctance. Something else you need to know about what happened to your family. Luna looked up, dreading whatever revelation was coming next. They weren't just killed, child. The Eclipse bloodline was hunted systematically over the course of years. Your parents. Elena's voice broke slightly. They were captured alive. Tortured for months while their enemies tried to force them to reveal the location of any surviving heirs. Luna felt bile rise in her throat. How do you know this? Because I was there, Elena whispered. I was the one who finally helped them escape, though it was too late to save their lives. They died getting you to safety, but not before they made me promise to watch over you. The revelation that Elena had known her parents, had been present during their final moments, sent Luna reeling. You've known who I was this entire time? From the moment Thomas brought you to me as a baby, Elena confirmed. I'd been waiting 18 years for this day, hoping it would never come but preparing for it nonetheless. Is there anyone else? Luna asked desperately. Any other survivors from my bloodline? Elena's expression grew even more troubled. 1. Your older brother, Damien. He was 13 when your parents were captured. He escaped during the rescue attempt, but... She trailed off. But what? He's been hunting you for the past 5 years, Elena said quietly. Ever since he learned you'd survived. Luna's blood turned to ice. Hunting me? Why? Because he believes the prophecy, Elena explained. He thinks that if he can find you first, he can convince you to choose darkness. To embrace the destructive path and help him get revenge on everyone who betrayed your family. And if I refuse? Elena's silver eyes were filled with ancient sadness. Then he'll kill you himself. He'd rather see the Eclipse Bloodline die with honor than watch you choose the path of unity and forgiveness. Luna stared into the growing darkness of the forest, processing the horrible truth. She had a brother who wanted to either corrupt her or kill her. A former mate whose pack was slowly transforming into monsters. And a destiny that offered only 2 paths, become a tyrant or become the destroyer of her own species. How long do I have before he finds me? She asked quietly. Elena and Kai exchanged another loaded look. He already knows you've awakened, Elena said. The power you just displayed, it sent shockwaves through every supernatural realm. He'll be here within days. Luna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of prophecy and destiny crushing down on her like a physical force. Somewhere in the distance, she could still hear the tortured cries of Marcus's pack as the curse slowly transformed them into the very darkness they'd feared. And heading toward her through the shadows was a brother she'd never known existed, coming to offer her a choice between damnation and death. Chapter 4. Luna didn't sleep that night. How could she, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, a brother she'd never known existed was hunting her with the same determination she'd once reserved for Marcus's approval? She sat beside Elena's small fire, watching the flames dance and trying to make sense of a world that had turned completely upside down in the span of 2 days. You should rest, Kai said softly from his position near the cave entrance, where he'd been standing guard since they'd taken shelter. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. How can I rest knowing what's coming? Luna hugged her knees to her chest, the weight of prophecy pressing down on her like a physical force. Either I become a monster, or I watch my species die. Those are my only choices. There might be another way, Elena said from where she sat grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle. The prophecy speaks in absolutes, but prophecies are often more flexible than they appear. Flexible how? Elena paused in her grinding. The exact wording is important. It says you'll either unite all werewolves under darkness or destroy them entirely. But it doesn't specify what kind of darkness, or what kind of destruction. Luna was about to ask what she meant when a new scent reached her nose, wild, dangerous, and hauntingly familiar despite the fact that she'd never encountered it before. Her wolf stirred uneasily, recognizing something in that scent that spoke to the very core of her being. Blood. Shadow. Power older than memory. He's here, Elena breathed. Kai's entire body went rigid, his silver eyes scanning the darkness beyond the cave entrance. I don't see anything. You won't, a new voice said from the shadows, deep and resonant with barely controlled fury. Not until I want you to. A figure stepped into the flickering firelight, and Luna's breath caught in her throat. If she'd had any doubts about their shared bloodline, they would have died the moment she saw Damien's face. He had her dark hair, her bone structure, even the same stubborn set to his jaw. But where Luna's eyes were warm brown, his were the color of midnight, and they held a coldness that made her shiver. He was beautiful in the way that predators were beautiful, perfectly designed for violence, every line of his body speaking to lethal grace and absolute confidence. Hello, little sister, Damien said, his voice carrying an edge that could have cut glass. Luna struggled to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. You're him. You're my brother. I am. Damien's dark eyes swept over her, taking in her torn dress and frightened expression with what might have been disappointment. Though I have to admit, you're not quite what I expected from the last heir of our bloodline. What did you expect? Luna asked, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Someone with more backbone, Damien replied bluntly. Someone who wouldn't cower in caves with rogues and outcasts while our enemies celebrate their victory. Elena stood slowly, her hands glowing with defensive magic. Damien Eclipse. I'd hoped you'd grown out of your thirst for revenge. Elena. Damien's smile was sharp as a blade. Still playing nursemaid to lost causes, I see. How noble of you. She's not a lost cause, Elena said firmly. She's the future of our people. Our people? Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. Our people stood by and watched as our family was slaughtered. They celebrated when the Eclipse Bloodline fell. They deserve whatever fate awaits them. Luna felt power stirring in her chest, responding to the intensity of Damien's presence. Not all of them. Some didn't even know what was happening. Ignorance is not innocence, Damien said coldly. And it's certainly not an excuse. He stepped closer to Luna, and she could feel the shadow magic radiating from him like heat. But we can discuss philosophy later. Right now, I'm here to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Damien gestured, and the air around them shimmered like heat waves. Suddenly, Luna could see images flickering in the space between them, memories, she realized, brutal and vivid and horrifyingly real. She saw her parents, younger than she'd ever imagined them, fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. She saw them captured, chained, tortured while their captors demanded information about surviving heirs. She saw her mother's face, beautiful even in death, twisted with agony as she breathed her last breath. Stop, Luna whispered, tears streaming down her face. This is what they did to our family, Damien continued remorselessly, the images shifting to show other Eclipse family members being hunted down like animals. This is the price of their betrayal. I said stop. Luna's power flared, shattering the illusion and sending shockwaves through the cave. Damien smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. There she is. There's the eclipse fire I've been waiting to see. Luna wiped her tears away with shaking hands. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand what we're fighting for, Damien said. Justice. Vengeance. The restoration of our rightful place as rulers of all werewolves. By becoming tyrants? By becoming what we were always meant to be. Damien's voice grew passionate, persuasive. The Eclipse Bloodline didn't just rule through fear, Luna. We brought order to chaos. We ended the endless wars between packs. We created a golden age that lasted for centuries. Through darkness, Elena interjected. The prophecy specifically mentions darkness. Damien shrugged. Darkness isn't inherently evil. It's simply power without the weakness of mercy, authority without the burden of sentiment. He turned back to Luna. Join me, sister. Help me rebuild our dynasty. Together, we can make the werewolf world remember why they once knelt before our ancestors. Luna felt the pull of his words, the seductive promise of power and purpose. But she also remembered the destruction she'd caused earlier, how easily her abilities had erased living beings from existence. And if I refuse? Damien's expression hardened. Then you're not my sister. You're just another traitor who needs to be eliminated. The casual way he spoke of killing her made Luna's blood run cold. You would murder your own family? I've spent 5 years watching our enemies prosper while our bloodline rotted in unmarked graves, Damien said. Family loyalty is a luxury I can no longer afford. A commotion from outside the cave interrupted their tense conversation. Shouting voices, the sound of running feet, and underneath it all, an otherworldly howling that made Luna's skin crawl. The Silver Moon Pack, Kai breathed, moving to peer out of the cave entrance. They're here. Through the opening, Luna could see torches flickering through the trees, and the shapes of wolves that moved wrong, as if their bodies were fighting against their own nature. Marcus, she whispered. The fool finally realized he needs you, Damien observed with dark amusement. Too little, too late. Marcus's voice echoed through the forest, raw with desperation. Luna. Luna, please. I know you're here. My pack is dying, and you're the only one who can save them. Luna moved toward the cave entrance, but Damien caught her arm. Don't even think about it. They're suffering because of me, Luna said. Because Marcus rejected me. They're suffering because they chose their fate, Damien corrected. Just like our parents chose theirs when they trusted the wrong people. Elena made a sound of distress. Luna, there's something else you need to know. About Thomas and Sarah. Luna's heart clenched. What about them? Elena's voice was heavy with reluctant truth. They weren't just present during your parents' capture. They were part of the hunting party that tracked them down. The words hit Luna like a physical blow. No. That's not possible. I'm sorry, child. But Thomas was following orders from the Alpha Council. He and Sarah were tasked with ensuring no Eclipse heirs survived the purge. But they saved me, Luna said desperately. They raised me, loved me. The compulsion spell your mother cast made them incapable of harming you, Elena explained gently. But it didn't erase what they'd done before they found you. Luna felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. The people she'd thought of as parents, who had raised her with apparent love and kindness, had been complicit in her family's genocide. I told you, Damien said softly. Trust no one. Everyone who isn't Eclipse blood has already betrayed us once. That's not true, Kai said suddenly, his silver eyes intense. Not everyone. Damien laughed. Oh, this should be interesting. Please, tell us about your noble intentions, assassin. Luna's blood turned to ice. What did you call him? Kai's face went white. Luna, I can explain. Explain what? But even as she asked, the pieces were falling into place. Kai's sudden appearance, his knowledge about her bloodline, the way he'd known exactly where to find her. I was sent by the Alpha Council, Kai said quietly. My mission was to monitor you, and if your powers became too dangerous. He trailed off. You were supposed to kill me, Luna finished, her voice hollow. Yes. Kai's admission was barely a whisper. But Luna, I swear to you, that was before I knew you. Before you what? Before I fell in love with you, Kai said desperately. I can't complete my mission. I won't. I'd rather die than hurt you. Damien clapped slowly. How touching. The assassin develops a conscience. Unfortunately for you, that confession just signed your death warrant. Shadows began to gather around Damien's hands, but before he could strike, more voices echoed from the forest. Thomas and Sarah, calling Luna's name with desperate urgency. Luna. Please, sweetheart, we need to talk to you. They're here, Elena said grimly. All the players in this tragic drama, gathered in one place. Luna felt like she was drowning. Her brother wanted to kill anyone who opposed them. Her former mate's pack was transforming into monsters. The man she'd begun to trust was an assassin sent to eliminate her. And the people she'd called parents had helped murder her real family. Choose, sister, Damien said, his voice cutting through her turmoil like a blade. Stand with me and embrace our destiny, or die with the rest of the traitors. Before Luna could answer, Thomas and Sarah stumbled into the clearing outside the cave, their faces haggard with exhaustion and fear. Luna. Sarah called out. Thank God you're safe. We need to get you away from here. The pack is looking for you, and they're not thinking clearly. Aren't they? Damien asked, stepping into view. Both Thomas and Sarah went rigid with terror as they recognized him. Damien Eclipse, Thomas breathed. You're supposed to be dead. Disappointed? Damien smiled that razor-sharp smile. Don't worry. Your disappointment won't last long. Wait, Luna stepped forward. Don't hurt them. Please. They murdered our parents, Damien said simply. Justice demands their lives. They were following orders, Luna said desperately. They didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Damien replied. They chose survival over honor. They chose betrayal over loyalty. The shadows around his hands grew darker. Now they'll live with the consequences. Or rather, they won't. Damien, no. But her brother was already moving, shadows flowing from his fingers like liquid death. Thomas tried to shield Sarah, but it was useless. The darkness wrapped around them both, and Luna heard their screams of agony as Damien's power tore through them. This is justice. Damien called out over their cries. This is what happens to those who betray the Eclipse Bloodline. Luna watched in horror as the people who had raised her, who had loved her despite their past sins, died in front of her eyes. Their faces, twisted with pain and terror, would be burned into her memory forever. Stop. Luna's scream tore from her throat with such force that it shattered trees, sent shockwaves through the earth, and caused every bird within miles to take flight in terror. But it was too late. Thomas and Sarah lay motionless on the ground, their bodies still and cold. Luna fell to her knees beside them, her heart shattering as completely as her mate Bond had. They had betrayed her family, yes. They had been complicit in genocide. But they had also been the only parents she'd ever known, and they had loved her as best they could within the constraints of the magic that bound them. Her grief was so profound, so all-consuming, that she didn't notice at first when the marks on her back began to burn brighter than they ever had before. She didn't realize that her power was building to levels that made her earlier display look like a candle compared to a forest fire. She didn't understand that her anguish was awakening something that had slept in Eclipse blood for over 1,000 years. Something ancient. Something terrible. Something that had once brought the entire werewolf world to its knees. And as Luna's scream of loss echoed through the night, that ancient power stirred, stretched, and began to wake. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 5. Luna's scream died in her throat, but the power it had awakened continued to build inside her like a storm gathering strength. She knelt beside Thomas and Sarah's bodies, their faces frozen in expressions of terror and pain, and felt something fundamental break inside her soul. Not her heart, that had already been shattered when Marcus rejected her. Not her spirit, that had cracked when she'd learned the truth about her bloodline. This was something deeper, something that connected her to the very essence of what she was. Her humanity. Luna, Elena's voice seemed to come from very far away. Child, you need to breathe. You need to. They're dead. Luna's voice was hollow, empty of everything except a terrible certainty. The only parents I ever knew are dead, and it's my fault. It's not your fault, Kai started toward her, but Damien caught his arm. Don't, Damien warned, his dark eyes fixed on Luna with something that might have been concern. Look at her. Really look. Luna wasn't aware of the changes happening to her body. She didn't notice how her skin had begun to glow with an inner light that was neither silver nor gold but something in between. She didn't see how her hair was lifting and moving as if stirred by an unfelt wind. She didn't realize that the marks on her back were no longer just glowing, they were burning through her dress, etching themselves into the very air around her. All she could see were Thomas and Sarah's lifeless eyes. I should have saved them, she whispered. I should have been strong enough to stop you. You couldn't have stopped me, Damien said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Luna, what you're feeling, this grief, this rage, it's normal. It's human. But I'm not human, am I? Luna looked up at her brother, and Damien took an involuntary step backward. Her eyes were no longer brown. They were black as midnight, shot through with veins of silver that pulsed like a heartbeat. I'm something else entirely. The transformation began slowly, then accelerated beyond anything Luna could control. Her bones lengthened, her muscles expanded, but not in the familiar pattern of a werewolf shift. This was something older, more primal. Her wolf was there, but it was merging with something else, something that had been sleeping in her bloodline for 1,000 years. When the change was complete, Luna stood before them as something that had never existed in the modern world. She was still recognizably herself, but enhanced, perfected, terrible. Her form flickered between human and wolf and something that was neither, something made of living shadow and captured moonlight. The Eclipse Wolf, Elena breathed. Dear gods, it's real. Luna raised her hands and watched as darkness flowed between her fingers like liquid silk. But this wasn't the chaotic, destructive power she'd manifested earlier. This was controlled, purposeful, alive with ancient intelligence. I can feel them, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself tremble. Every living thing for miles around. Their hearts beating, their blood flowing, their life force burning like candles in the dark. Luna, Damien's voice was carefully controlled. You need to calm down. This power, it's intoxicating, but you have to learn to master it. Master it? Luna turned to face him, and several of Damien's shadow wolves materialized from the darkness behind him, drawn by his subconscious call for protection. Why would I want to master something that feels this, right? She gestured casually toward the shadow wolves, not meaning any harm, simply curious about what she could do. Dark energy flowed from her fingers like water, and the moment it touched the first shadow wolf, the creature simply stopped. Not dead. Not banished. Simply gone, as if it had never existed. The second and third wolves met the same fate before Luna realized what was happening. She stared at her hands in horror as the remaining shadow wolves fled back into the darkness. I didn't mean to do that, she whispered. I know, Damien said quietly. That's what makes it so terrifying. Luna sank to her knees again, the eclipse transformation flickering as her concentration wavered. The prophecy. Elena, you said I would either unite all werewolves under darkness or destroy them entirely. Yes. But I don't get to choose, do I? Luna looked up at the witch with dawning understanding. The power chooses. I'm just the vessel it uses to remake the world. Elena's expression was grave. The Eclipse Bloodline was never about ruling through personal will. You're conduits for something much older and more powerful than individual ambition. A new sound reached their ears from the direction of the Silver Moon territory, not the howls of transformed pack members this time, but the desperate call of a single wolf. Marcus, Luna realized. He was coming here alone. He's finally realized what he's lost, Damien observed with dark satisfaction. Marcus emerged from the tree line a few minutes later, and Luna barely recognized him. Gone was the proud, arrogant alpha who had rejected her in front of the entire pack. This man moved like someone carrying an unbearable weight, his shoulders bowed, his eyes haunted. The partial transformation that marked him as cursed had progressed, shadow veins ran along his arms and neck, and his eyes held flecks of the same otherworldly darkness that plagued his pack. Luna, he said simply, stopping just outside the circle of firelight. She stood slowly, the eclipse power still flickering around her like heat waves. Marcus. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, he continued, his voice rough with exhaustion. But my pack, they're dying. The curse is consuming them, turning them into monsters. You're the only one who can stop it. Why should I help you? Luna asked, though there was no anger in her voice. The eclipse transformation had burned away her capacity for petty emotions. You called me weak. Unworthy. I was wrong. Marcus dropped to his knees, a gesture that would have been unthinkable from him just days ago. I was a fool, and my pride has doomed everyone I was supposed to protect. Damien laughed harshly. How touching. The mighty alpha finally admits his mistakes. I'll do anything, Marcus continued, ignoring Damien entirely. I'll submit to whatever punishment you think is appropriate. I'll give my life if that's what it takes. Just please, save my pack. They don't deserve to suffer for my failures. Luna studied Marcus's face, seeing the genuine remorse there, the desperate love for his people that had finally overcome his arrogance. The curse can only be broken by the willing sacrifice of the Eclipse heir it was meant to protect. Then take my life instead, Marcus said immediately. I'm the one who triggered the curse. Let it be my death that breaks it. It doesn't work that way, Elena said sadly. The magic is very specific. Before Luna could respond, new sense reached her enhanced senses. Multiple wolves, moving through the forest with predatory precision. Not pack wolves, these carried the cold, disciplined scent of professional killers. The Alpha Council, Kai breathed, his silver eyes scanning the darkness. They found us. How many? Damien asked, shadows already beginning to gather around his hands. Kai was quiet for a moment, using his enhanced senses to assess the threat. At least a dozen. All of them trained assassins. Elena's face went pale. They're not here to kill Luna. They're here to capture her. What do you mean? Luna asked, though she was already beginning to suspect the answer. The Alpha Council didn't just want to eliminate your bloodline, Elena explained rapidly. They wanted to harvest its power. The entire genocide was orchestrated to force the surviving heir to awaken in darkness, in rage and grief, making you easier to control. Or destroy, if control proved impossible, Damien added grimly. The assassins burst from the tree line like a coordinated strike force, moving with the deadly efficiency of wolves who had trained together for years. They wore no pack colors, carried no identification, but Luna could smell the Alpha Council's authority on them like a sickening cologne. Kai was moving before Luna even realized the attack had begun. He intercepted the lead assassin with a grace that spoke to his own deadly training, silver eyes blazing with protective fury. Run, he called to Luna over his shoulder. Get out of here. I'm not leaving you, Luna said, the eclipse power surging through her again. You have to. Kai's voice was desperate as he fought off two assassins at once. They have weapons designed specifically to contain eclipse power. If they capture you. His words were cut off as one of the assassins managed to drive a silver blade between his ribs. Kai stumbled, silver blood spreading across his shirt, but he kept fighting. Kai. Luna started toward him, but Damien caught her arm. He's buying us time, her brother said urgently. Don't waste his sacrifice. But Luna couldn't leave. Not when Kai was bleeding, not when he was fighting to protect her despite the betrayal of his original mission. The eclipse power roared through her veins, demanding action, demanding vengeance. She raised her hands, ready to unleash the same destructive force that had erased Damien's shadow wolves, but Kai caught her eye and shook his head. No, he gasped, still fighting even as more silver blades found their mark. You're not a killer, Luna. Don't let them make you into one. The lead assassin, frustrated by Kai's stubborn resistance, drew a blade that gleamed with something more than silver. Luna could smell the magic on it from across the clearing, something designed to cut through supernatural defenses like they were paper. Kai, look out. But it was too late. The enchanted blade sliced through Kai's guard and pierced his heart. He looked down at the weapon protruding from his chest with something that might have been surprise, then collapsed to his knees. No. Luna's scream shattered the night as she caught Kai before he could fall completely. His silver eyes were already growing dim, but he managed to focus on her face. I'm sorry, he whispered. For lying to you. For being sent to kill you. For everything. Don't apologize, Luna said desperately, pressing her hands against the wound that was pumping his life away. Just hold on. I can fix this. I can. Can't fix what was already broken, Kai murmured. But you showed me what love means. Real love. Thank you for that gift. His eyes closed, and Luna felt the exact moment when his life force flickered out like a candle in the wind. Kai. She shook his shoulders gently, then more urgently. Kai, please. Don't leave me. Not now. Not when I've lost everyone else. The assassins were regrouping, preparing for another attack, but Luna barely noticed them. All she could see was Kai's still face, peaceful now but terribly, finally empty. Her tears fell onto his skin like silver rain, each drop carrying a grief so profound that it seemed to bend reality around it. She wasn't aware of the power building inside her again, wasn't conscious of the way her tears began to glow with the same otherworldly light as the marks on her back. She was only aware of the terrible absence where Kai's heartbeat should have been. "Come back," she whispered. "Please, come back to me." The Eclipse power responded to her grief, to the desperate love that poured out of her broken heart. But this wasn't the destructive force she'd wielded before. This was something else entirely, something that reached across the veil between life and death and demanded answers. Kai's eyes opened. But when he looked at her, Luna knew immediately that something was wrong. His eyes were still silver, but they held depths that hadn't been there before. He breathed, but the rhythm was wrong. His heart beat, but too slowly, too deliberately. "Luna?" His voice was the same, but underneath it was something else. Something that spoke of boundaries crossed and laws of nature bent beyond their breaking point. "You came back," Luna breathed, touching his face with trembling fingers. Kai sat up slowly, looking around the clearing as if seeing it for the first time. The assassins had retreated, apparently as shocked by this impossible resurrection as everyone else. "I did," he said wonderingly. "But I'm not. I'm not the same, am I?" Luna could only shake her head, afraid to speak the truth aloud. She had brought him back from the dead, but she had no idea what the cost of that miracle would be, for him, for her, or for the fundamental balance between life and death itself. The Eclipse power had awakened something in her that went far beyond the prophecy's simple choice between unity and destruction. She wasn't just a conduit for ancient werewolf magic anymore. She was something that could reshape the very foundations of existence itself. Chapter 6. Kai stood in the flickering firelight, and Luna couldn't shake the feeling that she was looking at a beautiful corpse that had forgotten it was supposed to be dead. He moved with the same fluid grace he'd always possessed, but there was something fundamentally different about the way shadows seemed to cling to him now, as if they recognized him as one of their own. "How do you feel?" she asked softly, afraid of the answer. Kai flexed his fingers, watching as darkness swirled between them like living smoke. "Strange. Like I'm standing at the bottom of a deep, cold lake, looking up at the surface but never quite able to reach it." He met her eyes, and she saw something that made her heart ache. "I remember dying, Luna. I remember the blade piercing my heart, the light fading. But I also remember your voice calling me back." "I couldn't let you go," Luna whispered. "I know." Kai's smile was sad and beautiful and terrible all at once. "I can feel it now, the connection between us. Your life force is keeping me tethered to this world, but Luna..." He paused, struggling with how to explain something that defied explanation. "I don't think I'm entirely human anymore." Before Luna could respond, Damien's voice cut through their moment of intimacy. "We have bigger problems than your boyfriend's existential crisis." The remaining Alpha Council assassins had regrouped at the edge of the clearing, but they weren't retreating. They were waiting for something. "What are they doing?" Marcus asked, moving closer to their small group. The shadow veins along his arms pulsed with each heartbeat, a visible reminder of the curse slowly consuming his pack. Elena, who had been unusually quiet since Kai's resurrection, suddenly went rigid with terror. "They're not the real threat. They're just scouts, sent to confirm Luna's location and abilities." "Scouts for what?" Luna asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. "For him," Elena breathed. "The one who orchestrated all of this. The true leader of the Alpha Council." A new presence entered the clearing, and Luna felt her blood turn to ice. This wasn't another assassin or council member. This was something far more dangerous, something that made her Eclipse power recoil like a wounded animal. The figure that emerged from the shadows was tall and elegant, with silver hair and eyes the color of winter storms. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute authority, and when he smiled, Luna saw her own features reflected in his face. "Hello, my dear granddaughter," Alexander Eclipse said, his voice warm with what sounded like genuine affection. "You've grown into such a beautiful young woman." Luna's world tilted sideways. "Grandfather?" "Very much alive, as you can see." Alexander's smile widened, revealing teeth that were just a little too sharp to be entirely human. Though I must admit, reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Necessarily so, of course. Damien's face had gone white with shock and rage. You're supposed to be dead. I saw your body myself during the massacre. You saw what I wanted you to see, Alexander replied calmly. A rather convincing illusion, I thought. It allowed me to move freely while the rest of our family was dealt with. You orchestrated the genocide of your own bloodline, Luna said, the horrible truth settling over her like a shroud. I orchestrated the consolidation of power, Alexander corrected. The Eclipse bloodline was too diluted, spread across too many individuals. The magic was weakening with each generation, becoming scattered and unfocused. Luna felt sick. So you had your own family murdered. I had the weak culled so that the strong could survive, Alexander said with the casual indifference of someone discussing the weather. You, my dear, are the culmination of that process. All of our bloodline's power, concentrated in a single, malleable vessel. Malleable? Damien snarled, shadows gathering around him like living armor. Alexander's laugh was musical and horrible. Oh, my dear boy. Did you really think your survival was an accident? Your years of building an army of shadow wolves, your convenient arrival just as Luna's power awakened? I've been guiding both of your paths from the very beginning. Luna stared at her grandfather in growing horror. The adoptive parents you arranged for me. Thomas and Sarah. Were following my orders, yes. I needed you raised in obscurity, kept weak and isolated, so that when the time came for your power to manifest, you would be easier to control. Alexander's expression grew thoughtful. Though I must admit, Marcus's rejection worked out better than I'd hoped. The trauma accelerated your awakening beautifully. Marcus stepped forward, his partially transformed features twisted with rage. You used me. You knew what would happen if I rejected her. I knew exactly what would happen, Alexander confirmed. The curse, the transformation of your pack, Luna's desperate need to save them, it all served to push her toward the darkness necessary for my ritual. What ritual? Luna demanded. The eternal eclipse, Alexander said, his eyes beginning to glow with anticipation. A working that will allow me to absorb not just your power, but your very essence. With your life force added to mine, I will become immortal, unkillable, the undisputed ruler of all supernatural beings. Elena made a sound of horror. That's impossible. The eternal eclipse was lost centuries ago. Lost to everyone but me, Alexander smiled. I've spent the last 18 years perfecting the ritual, ensuring that when Luna finally awakened to her full potential, I would be ready to claim it. Kai moved to Luna's side, his new shadow-bound nature radiating protective menace. You'll have to go through me first. Alexander studied Kai with interest. Fascinating. A resurrection bound to eclipse power. You're not quite alive and not quite dead, are you? How deliciously unstable. Before anyone could react, Alexander gestured casually, and Kai doubled over in agony. The shadows that now comprised part of his essence began to writhe and twist, responding to Alexander's command. Stop. Luna's power flared, but Alexander held up a hand. Careful, my dear. He's tied to your life force, yes, but I created the shadow magic that brought him back. I can unmake him just as easily. Luna felt trapped, powerless despite all her abilities. Every move she made would endanger Kai, and Alexander knew it. What do you want? She asked quietly. Your cooperation, Alexander replied. Come with me willingly, and I'll make your death quick and painless. The ritual will be over in minutes, and your friends will be free to live out their natural lives. And if I refuse? Alexander's smile turned predatory. Then I'll take you anyway, but not before I make you watch as I torture everyone you care about. Starting with your shadow-bound lover. Damien stepped forward, his own power building to dangerous levels. You forgot one thing, grandfather. I'm not bound to anyone's life force. I'm free to act. Are you? Alexander's eyes sparkled with amusement. Tell me, Damien, what do you know about your most trusted lieutenant, Victor? Damien's face went pale. What about Victor? He's been reporting your every move to me for the past 3 years, Alexander revealed casually. Every plan, every strategy, every safe house. How do you think I knew exactly where to find you? The betrayal hit Damien like a physical blow. Victor had been with him since the beginning, one of the first shadow wolves to join his cause. If Victor was a traitor. Luna, run, Elena said urgently. Get out of here while you still can. But even as she spoke, more figures emerged from the darkness. Council soldiers, dozens of them, surrounding the clearing with military precision. And leading them was Victor himself, his familiar face wearing an expression of cold satisfaction. I'm sorry, brother, Victor said to Damien. But Alexander promised me power beyond imagining. The old ways are dead. It's time to embrace evolution. Elena stood, her hands beginning to glow with defensive magic. I won't let you take her. Alexander sighed with what seemed like genuine regret. Elena, my dear friend. You've been such a faithful guardian, but your usefulness has come to an end. The attack happened so quickly that Luna barely saw it. One moment Elena was standing, magic crackling around her fingers, the next she was on the ground with Victor's claws buried in her throat. No. Luna tried to reach her, but council soldiers moved to block her path. Elena's eyes found Luna's across the clearing. The prophecy, she gasped, blood frothing at her lips. It's not what you think. The darkness and destruction, they're not separate paths. They're the same. Her voice faded, and Luna felt another anchor to her humanity snap as Elena's life force flickered out. Touching, Alexander observed. But ultimately pointless. The witch served her purpose, just as everyone else has. Luna stared at Elena's still form, feeling something fundamental shift inside her chest. Elena had been her guide, her source of wisdom, the only one who truly understood what she was becoming. Now she was gone, and Luna was truly alone with her devastating power. You're a monster, she whispered to Alexander. I'm evolution, he replied calmly. The next step in supernatural development. And you, my dear granddaughter, are going to help me achieve it. Marcus, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly stepped forward. Alexander. The older man turned to him with mild interest. Yes, Marcus. You said you could break the curse on my pack, Marcus said carefully. Save them from transformation. Alexander nodded. I could indeed. The curse is my creation, after all. Luna felt her heart sink as she realized what Marcus was considering. The curse was killing his people, turning them into monsters. If Alexander offered salvation, what would you want in exchange? Marcus asked. Marcus, no, Luna breathed. But Alexander was already smiling. Simple. Deliver Luna to me willingly. Help me complete the ritual, and your pack will be free of their curse within the hour. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Luna could see the war playing out across his features. His duty to his pack versus his growing feelings for her. His guilt over the rejection versus his responsibility as an alpha. All right, Marcus said finally. I accept your terms. Luna felt like she'd been punched in the gut. Even after everything, even after his apparent remorse and desire for redemption, Marcus was still choosing his pack over her. Marcus, Damien snarled, shadows writhing around him like living things. You traitorous. I accept your terms, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger, but I want to see the ritual site first. I want to understand exactly what you're planning before I hand her over. Alexander studied Marcus with shrewd eyes. You don't trust me? I don't trust anyone anymore, Marcus replied honestly. Too many lies, too many betrayals. If I'm going to damn Luna's soul, I want to know exactly how and why. Alexander considered this for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Victor, take Marcus to the stronghold. Show him the ritual chamber, explain the process. Let him see what Luna's sacrifice will accomplish. As the council soldiers began to move, preparing to escort Marcus away, he caught Luna's eyes across the clearing. For just a moment, she saw something there that made her breath catch. Not betrayal, but determination. Not abandonment, but purpose. Marcus wasn't planning to hand her over to Alexander. He was planning to infiltrate the council's stronghold and find a way to stop the ritual from within. But as the soldiers led him away into the darkness, Luna realized that even if Marcus succeeded in his deception, even if he managed to strike a blow against Alexander's plans, it might already be too late. Because the revelation that her grandfather had been manipulating her entire life, orchestrating every tragedy and triumph to serve his own ends, had awakened something in Luna that went beyond rage or grief. It had awakened despair. And despair, she was beginning to understand, was the most dangerous emotion an Eclipse heir could feel. Chapter 7. The moon hung in the sky like a wound, blood-red and swollen with ancient power. Luna had never seen a blood eclipse before, but she could feel its influence in every cell of her body, her eclipse abilities magnified to terrifying levels, but also wild, unpredictable, threatening to tear her apart from the inside. The ritual begins at the peak of the eclipse, Damien said grimly as they approached the council's stronghold. We have maybe an hour before Alexander becomes unstoppable. The stronghold itself was a nightmare of twisted stone and shadow magic, built into the side of a mountain like a cancerous growth. Luna could feel the dark energy radiating from it, making her skin crawl and her wolf pace restlessly. How many guards? Kai asked, his shadow-bound senses extending into the darkness around them. Too many, Marcus replied, emerging from the tree-line behind them. His infiltration had given him valuable intelligence, but the grim set of his features suggested the news wasn't good. Alexander has every remaining council member here, plus their personal armies. We're looking at over 100 enemies. 4 against 100, Damien mused. I've faced worse odds. Not against opponents like these, Marcus warned. Alexander has been using Eclipse blood to enhance his soldiers. They're stronger, faster, and completely loyal to him. Luna felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like lead. This is all because of me. If I hadn't awakened. Stop, Kai interrupted, his silver eyes fierce with determination. None of this is your fault. Alexander would have found another way eventually. Kai's right, Marcus said quietly. I've seen the ritual chamber, Luna. Alexander has been preparing for this for decades. He would have triggered your awakening one way or another. Luna looked at the 3 men who had become her unlikely allies. Marcus, seeking redemption for his rejection. Damien, driven by vengeance but slowly learning there were things more important than revenge. Kai, bound to her by love and death and forces beyond their understanding. If we do this, some of us aren't coming back, she said softly. Then we'd better make it count, Damien replied. They attacked during the darkest phase of the eclipse, when Luna's power was at its most chaotic. The plan was simple, create enough of a distraction to get Luna to the ritual chamber, where she could confront Alexander before the ceremony reached its climax. The plan lasted exactly 30 seconds. Alexander's enhanced soldiers weren't just stronger and faster, they were smarter, more coordinated than ordinary werewolves. They moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's actions with supernatural precision. They're linked, Kai realized as he fought off 3 soldiers at once. Alexander is controlling them directly. Like a hive mind, Marcus agreed, his claws raking across an enemy's throat. We can't fight them like individual opponents. Luna tried to use her eclipse power to even the odds, but the blood moon's influence made it nearly impossible to control. Dark energy erupted from her in waves, sometimes disintegrating enemies, sometimes missing entirely and carving craters in the stone walls. I can't control it, she gasped as another surge of power barely missed Damien's head. Then don't, her brother replied, shadows writhing around him like living armor. Let it loose. Burn this entire place to the ground. Everyone will die, Luna protested. You, Marcus, Kai. Better that than letting Alexander complete his ritual, Damien snarled. They fought their way deeper into the stronghold, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. But for every soldier they defeated, 2 more appeared. And all the while, Luna could feel the eclipse reaching its peak, her power building to levels that made her bones ache and her vision blur. Finally, they reached the ritual chamber, a vast cavern carved into the heart of the mountain, its walls covered with eclipse symbols that pulsed with their own inner light. At the center stood Alexander, no longer bothering to maintain his human appearance. He had become something else entirely, tall, ethereal, with skin that seemed to be made of captured starlight and eyes that held the depth of eternity. "Right on time," he said, his voice echoing with harmonics that made the very air tremble. "I was beginning to worry you might miss the climax." Luna stared at her grandfather in horror. "What have you done to yourself?" "I've become what our bloodline was always meant to be," Alexander replied. "Immortal. All-powerful. A god among lesser beings." Around the chamber, Luna could see the evidence of his crimes, dozens of ritual circles, each one containing the withered remains of Eclipse Bloodline members. Her family, her ancestors, all of them drained of life to feed Alexander's monstrous transformation. "You've been feeding on them for decades," she breathed. "Every Eclipse death for the past 50 years has nourished me," Alexander confirmed. "Your parents were particularly sustaining, their power was considerable, and their suffering made it all the sweeter." Damien roared with rage and launched himself at Alexander, shadows flowing around him like liquid death. But Alexander gestured casually, and Damien was thrown back against the wall with bone-crushing force. "My dear grandson," Alexander chided. "You always were too impulsive." Luna tried to help Damien, but Alexander's attention turned to her, and she felt the full weight of his enhanced power pressing down on her like a physical force. "Now then," Alexander continued, "let's discuss the final phase of my ritual. You see, I haven't just been feeding on Eclipse blood. I've been slowly poisoning every other werewolf bloodline for decades." Marcus's face went white with understanding. "The plagues. The fertility problems. The pack bonds weakening, that was all you." "Clever boy," Alexander smiled. "I needed to ensure that when I completed my ascension, werewolves would have no choice but to accept me as their god. They're all dependent on my power now, whether they realize it or not." Luna felt sick. "You've doomed an entire species." "I've elevated them," Alexander corrected. "Under my rule, they'll become something greater than they ever imagined. Of course, that requires your cooperation." "I'll never help you," Luna said fiercely. "You don't have a choice," Alexander replied. "The ritual is already in motion. The blood eclipse has reached its peak, and your power is calling to mind whether you want it to or not." He was right. Luna could feel her eclipse abilities being drawn toward Alexander like iron filings to a magnet. The ancient symbols on her back were burning with such intensity that she could smell her own flesh cooking. "There has to be another way," she gasped. Damien struggled to his feet, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "There is," he said quietly. "But you're not going to like it." "Damien. The Eclipse bloodline has to end," her brother continued, shadows gathering around his hands once more. "All of it. If there are no more Eclipse heirs, Alexander's power source disappears." Luna stared at him in horror. "You're talking about killing both of us." "I'm talking about saving everyone else," Damien replied. "It's the only way to stop him." Alexander laughed, the sound echoing off the cavern walls. "How noble. But I'm afraid it won't work, my dear boy. I've already absorbed too much Eclipse essence. Your deaths would be unfortunate, but hardly catastrophic to my plans." "Maybe not," Damien said, "but they would stop you from becoming truly immortal." Alexander's expression shifted slightly. "What do you mean?" "The Eternal Eclipse ritual requires a living Eclipse heir to complete it," Damien explained. "Dead ones won't do. Without Luna's living essence, you'll be powerful, yes, but still mortal." Luna saw the truth in Alexander's eyes. Damien was right. The ritual required her active participation, her living power. If she died, Alexander would be strong but not invincible. "It's the only way, sister," Damien said gently. "I'm sorry." He moved faster than Luna had ever seen him move, shadows flowing from his hands like liquid death. But instead of attacking Alexander, he turned the deadly energy on himself and Luna. No. Luna threw up a barrier of Eclipse power, but Damien's attack was designed specifically to penetrate her defenses. She felt his shadow magic pierce her chest like ice, reaching for her heart. But in that moment, faced with the choice between letting Damien kill them both or unleashing her full power in a blast that would destroy everything for miles around, Luna chose a third option. She began to absorb everything. Not just Damien's attack, but all the death and darkness that saturated the ritual chamber. The withered remains of her murdered family members. The corruption that Alexander had spread through the werewolf bloodlines. The shadow magic that permeated the stronghold. All of it flowed into her like poison into a sponge. "What are you doing?" Alexander demanded, his composure finally cracking. "Cleaning up your mess," Luna replied through gritted teeth. The absorbed darkness felt like acid in her veins, but she kept pulling it in. "If I can contain all the corruption you've spread, all the death you've caused, maybe I can stop it from spreading any further." "You'll kill yourself," Damien protested, his own attack faltering as he realized what she was doing. "Better that than letting anyone else die because of our bloodline," Luna said. The process was agony. Every moment of pain her murdered family had endured, every drop of poison Alexander had spread through the werewolf species, every shadow-touched soul he'd corrupted, all of it flowed through Luna's consciousness like molten metal. But she held on, determined to be the filter that cleansed Alexander's evil from the world, even if it destroyed her in the process. Alexander, realizing what she was doing, launched a desperate final attack. Pure Eclipse power, dark and hungry and aimed directly at Luna's heart. Marcus moved without thinking, throwing himself between Luna and the deadly energy. The blast took him full in the chest, and Luna felt his life force flicker and fade as he collapsed to the cavern floor. "Marcus." Luna tried to go to him, but she couldn't stop the absorption process without releasing all the corruption back into the world. Marcus looked up at her with eyes that were already growing dim. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything. For rejecting you, for not seeing how extraordinary you were from the beginning." "Don't apologize," Luna said desperately. "You came back for me. You tried to make it right. You were always worthy," Marcus continued, his voice growing fainter. "Always worthy of love, of respect, of everything good in this world. I was just too blind and stupid to see it." His eyes closed, and Luna felt another piece of her heart break as Marcus's life force joined the stream of death and darkness flowing into her. She was fading now, her physical form becoming translucent as she absorbed more corruption than any living being was meant to contain. The absorbed evil was killing her from the inside, but she held on, determined to complete the process no matter the cost. But as her vision began to dim, as her strength finally started to fail, something unexpected happened. The ancient marks on her back, which had been burning with Eclipse power throughout the battle, suddenly began to change. New symbols appeared between the old ones, written in a script that was even more ancient than the Leaken language. They pulsed with silver light that had nothing to do with Eclipse magic and everything to do with something far older and more fundamental. Love. Sacrifice. The willingness to give everything for others without expecting anything in return. Elena's final words echoed in Luna's fading consciousness. The darkness and destruction, they're not separate paths. They're the same. And suddenly, Luna understood. The prophecy had never offered her just two choices. There had always been a third option, hidden in the deepest mysteries of Eclipse lore. She didn't have to choose between ruling through darkness or destroying everything. She could choose to transform both the darkness and the destruction into something else entirely. Something that would require not just her power, but her very soul. Chapter 8. As the ancient symbols blazed silver across her back, Luna felt the complete prophecy unfold in her mind like the petals of a flower that had waited millennia to bloom. The words weren't written in any language she'd learned, but they resonated in her soul with the clarity of absolute truth. When the last Eclipse heir stands at the crossroads of eternity, she may choose not between darkness and light, but to become the bridge that unites them both. In willing sacrifice, she shall transform death into life, hatred into love, and the curse of power into the blessing of balance. But she who saves all worlds shall belong fully to none, forever walking between what was and what shall be. The bridge, Luna whispered, understanding flooding through her even as her physical form continued to fade. I'm not meant to choose a side. I'm meant to heal the division itself. Alexander, witnessing the transformation, roared with rage and desperation. No. The power belongs to me. I am the rightful heir to Eclipse dominion. But his words carried no weight against the silver fire now flowing through Luna's veins. This wasn't Eclipse power anymore, it was something far older, far more fundamental. The force that had existed before light and darkness were separated, before the supernatural world fractured into warring factions. Luna stopped trying to contain the absorbed corruption within herself. Instead, she began to transform it. Every drop of Alexander's poison became healing light. Every shadow-touched soul was cleansed and renewed. Every moment of hatred and vengeance was transmuted into understanding and forgiveness. The process should have killed her instantly. No being, mortal or immortal, was meant to channel forces of this magnitude. But Luna wasn't doing this alone anymore. She could feel the spirits of every Eclipse ancestor who had ever lived, their combined strength flowing through her, supporting her as she rewrote the fundamental laws of their bloodline. Luna. Damien's voice reached her across the growing maelstrom of silver light. Let me help you. Her brother threw himself into the transformation, not as an enemy but as an ally. His shadow magic, which had been shaped by years of hatred and revenge, began to change under the influence of Luna's sacrifice. The darkness didn't disappear, instead, it became something beautiful, necessary shadows that gave depth and meaning to light. Alexander made one final, desperate attempt to stop them. He poured every ounce of stolen power into a blast of pure destruction aimed at Luna's heart. But the attack never reached her. A figure materialized between them, Marcus, somehow standing despite the fatal wound in his chest. His eyes blazed with renewed life, but something deeper too. Purpose. Understanding. Love freely given without expectation of return. I won't let you hurt her, he said simply, and his words carried the weight of absolute conviction. Alexander's attack struck Marcus and was absorbed. Not destroyed, not deflected, but transformed by the same force that was changing Luna. Marcus had become part of the bridge she was building, a guardian infused with the power of willing sacrifice. Impossible, Alexander snarled. The dead cannot return. Death is just another form of transformation, a familiar voice said from behind him. Elena stepped out of the silver light, her form glowing with gentle radiance. Like Marcus, she had been resurrected by Luna's sacrifice, but she was no longer entirely human. She had become something new, a guardian of knowledge and wisdom, tasked with helping the supernatural world navigate the changes to come. Even Kai was changing. The shadow binding that had kept him tethered between life and death was dissolving, replaced by something far more beautiful. He became Luna's eternal companion, bound not by magic or necessity but by love that transcended the boundaries between existence and void. Alexander, seeing his centuries of planning crumbling around him, made one final desperate play. He turned his stolen power on himself, attempting to become a creature of pure destruction that could survive even Luna's transformation. But Luna was ready for him. Instead of fighting her grandfather's final assault, she embraced it. She wrapped her arms around Alexander as his form began to disintegrate into chaotic energy, and she held him close while the silver fire cleansed away centuries of accumulated malice and greed. Grandfather, she whispered as his true self, scared, lonely, convinced that power was the only thing that mattered, was finally revealed. You don't have to be alone anymore. For a moment, just a moment, Alexander's eyes cleared. He saw what he had become, what he had done to his own family, and the weight of it broke something inside him that had been hardened by centuries of justification. Luna, he breathed. What have I done? What fear made you do? She replied gently. But fear doesn't have to win. Alexander's form began to dissolve completely, but this time it wasn't destruction. It was transformation. His essence, cleansed of corruption, became part of the new foundation Luna was building, a reminder that even the most lost soul could find redemption if someone was willing to offer love without conditions. The silver light reached its crescendo, pouring out from the ritual chamber to blanket the entire supernatural world. Werewolves felt the poison leaving their bloodlines, replaced by strength and vitality they hadn't known in decades. Shadow creatures found themselves cleansed of the compulsions that had driven them to violence, free to choose their own paths. Witches discovered their magic no longer carried the taint of ancient grudges but flowed pure and clean. The pack system itself began to change. Alphas who had ruled through fear and dominance found their power shifting, becoming based on wisdom, compassion, and genuine care for their people. Those who couldn't adapt to the new reality simply faded, their artificial authority replaced by leaders who had earned their positions through service rather than strength. When the light finally faded, the world had been fundamentally transformed. But the cost. Luna opened her eyes to find herself standing in a place that existed between places. Not quite the physical world, not quite the realm of spirit, but somewhere in the eternal spaces between. She could see both realities, the mortal plane where her friends and brother were picking up the pieces of their shattered lives, and the deeper currents of magic and meaning that flowed underneath everything. Luna. Kai appeared beside her, his form flickering between solid and translucent. Are you all right? She turned to look at him, seeing him clearly for the first time since his resurrection. He was beautiful, radiant with purpose and love, but he was no longer entirely the man she had fallen for. None of them were. I'm not sure all right applies to what we've become, she said softly. Kai's smile was understanding. No. But we're together, and we're serving something greater than ourselves. That has to count for something. In the physical world, Luna could see Marcus addressing what remained of the Silver Moon Pack. His words carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom as he spoke about redemption, second chances, and the courage required to build something better from the ruins of what had been destroyed. Damien stood at his side, not as an enemy but as an ally. Her brother's face had lost the harsh lines of perpetual anger, replaced by something Luna had never seen there before, peace. He was speaking to a gathered council of supernatural leaders, outlining plans for a new form of governance based on cooperation rather than domination. Elena moved among them all, her role as guide and teacher more important than ever as the supernatural world learned to navigate its transformed reality. She caught Luna's ethereal gaze across the dimensional divide and smiled, a communication that transcended words. You did well, child. You chose the hardest path, but the right one. Do you ever regret it? Kai asked quietly. Giving up your mortality? Your chance at a normal life? Luna considered the question, watching as reformed shadow creatures began to integrate into werewolf packs, as ancient grudges dissolved in the face of shared purpose, as a new world built on the foundation of her sacrifice took shape. I never had a chance at a normal life, she said finally. From the moment I was born, I was destined for this. But I did have a choice about what this would become. She gestured toward the thriving supernatural world below them, where former enemies worked side by side to build something unprecedented. I could have chosen to rule through fear or to destroy everything in despair. Instead, I chose to heal. To transform. To become the bridge that lets others walk from darkness to light. And was it worth it? Kai pressed. Luna felt the silver marks on her back pulse with gentle warmth, no longer symbols of ancient power but reminders of the love that had made transformation possible. Through her enhanced senses, she could feel every supernatural being in the world, their life forces bright and clean and free of the corruption that had plagued them for centuries. She was alone in one sense, forever separated from the mortal world by her transformation. But in another sense, she had never been less alone. She was connected to everything, responsible for maintaining the balance that kept their world from sliding back into chaos. Yes, she said quietly. It was worth it. Years passed, though time moved differently in the space between worlds where Luna maintained her vigil. She watched as the supernatural world continued to evolve, as new challenges arose and were met with the wisdom and compassion her sacrifice had made possible. Marcus proved to be an exceptional leader, his pack becoming a model for others as they learned to value emotional intelligence and genuine care over raw strength. He never took another mate. Some loves, Luna realized, were too profound to replace. Instead, he channeled his devotion into service, becoming a beacon of hope for those seeking redemption. Damien established the new Supernatural Council, a governing body that represented all species equally and operated on principles of justice rather than power. He carried the weight of his past actions with quiet dignity, never forgetting the path of hatred he'd walked but using that knowledge to help others find better ways. Elena became the keeper of knowledge, training a new generation of witches and wise ones who would guide future generations through whatever challenges lay ahead. Her death and resurrection had given her unique insights into the cyclical nature of existence, wisdom she shared freely with all who sought it. And Kai remained by Luna's side through it all. Her eternal companion, the one who had chosen love over duty, sacrifice over safety. Together, they watched over the balance they had died to create, intervening only when necessary to prevent the darkness from returning. On the anniversary of their transformation, Luna stood at the edge of their ethereal realm, looking down at the world they had saved. The silver marks on her back glowed softly in the eternal twilight, no longer symbols of a cursed bloodline but reminders of the love that had redeemed everything. "Do you see it?" she asked Kai, gesturing toward the mortal world below. He followed her gaze to where a young werewolf was helping an injured shadow creature, where a witch was teaching pack children about the history they needed to remember, where former enemies shared a meal and friendship. "I see it," he said softly. "Hope. Healing. The future you chose to make possible." Luna smiled, her form flickering between the girl she had been and the guardian she had become. She was alone in the sense that she could never again be fully part of the world she protected. But she was not lonely. How could she be lonely when she carried the love of everyone she had saved, when every act of kindness in the world below was a reflection of the choice she had made? "The prophecy was wrong about one thing," she said quietly. "What's that?" Luna turned to face Kai, her eyes bright with the wisdom of one who had seen death and transcended it. "It said I would belong fully to none. But I belong to all of them. Every werewolf who finds their true mate, every shadow creature who chooses light, every supernatural being who learns that power without love is meaningless, they're all part of me now." She looked back at the world one more time, seeing not what had been lost but what had been gained. Where once there had been division, there was unity. Where once there had been fear, there was understanding. Where once there had been a curse of power and bloodshed, there was now a blessing of balance and hope. Luna Blackwood had been rejected by her mate, cast out by her pack, and marked for death by her own bloodline. But in choosing love over vengeance, sacrifice over survival, she had become something greater than any prophecy had dared imagine. She had become the bridge between all worlds, the guardian of the peace she had died to create, the eternal reminder that even in the deepest darkness, love could still find a way to kindle light. And as the silver dawn broke over the supernatural world she protected, Luna smiled and settled in for her eternal watch, knowing that some sacrifices were not endings but beginnings, and that the love she had chosen would echo through generations yet to come. I know you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you want to continue seeing more videos like this. Also do well to share your thoughts in the comments section below and share this video to family and friends.